thank you for a very full talk. Okay, questions, comments? You.
I think all the things need doing, but the big question is, who do we get to do it in many cases, isn't it? And the problem is that in, say, a month, 2 months, we're going to have an election in which Remain Leave going to be in the papers all the time. But the fact that we're in a climate crisis is not, it's going to be subdued. It's really interesting at the moment that today, for example, the Labour Party came up with the idea of taxing investments, but not specifically saying, okay, we're going to tax them, because they're not taxed now, bringing it to government, oh yeah, we're going to do nice things with it. They want to do very specific things, which they say in advance, which are obviously Green New Deal things. So I think with all the fact that everybody's get together, we can have a demonstration and we can get the TU working, the real question is getting a government to do it, and it won't be a Conservative government. So therefore, actually getting the Labour Party to make sure it adapts and adopts things, and then supporting that is going to be a key question.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know your
Peter.
name.
Peter, yeah. Hi, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, the bizarreness of the energy supply market. Last time when I was on one of these websites to try and find the cheapest energy, my energy now is supplied by, I think it's Sussex Council or Islington Council. So it's completely turned round that, you know, what was a public supply is now in some cases become, if you live around here, it's the cheapest is Islington.
Do you work with Fuel Poverty Action? Because they are really important in the fact they're trying to push forward a new energy bill. And also, I was at a conference, it was the Blackpool conference of the National Pensions Convention, and Ruth London was the one of the guest speakers, and she was talking about this particularly for the older people, because most of us rely on gas, which is the cheapest. That's our highest footprint. Secondly, our homes are the worst insulated in the whole of Europe in this country, so that involves construction industry. And if we're going to have our houses adapted, then we have to look into these things. These and massive things that have to be looked into, as you just told us, and they do affect all sectors of the population, for everything that you just mentioned. I just thought I'd like to tell you that and another thing, it's only because of the UCU, and I've been coming here and been sent as a representative to the National Pensions Convention, that they've actually been alerted to climate change. So the motions that come from you, and I go to the NPC, and I stand up in London, the London region, and then I go to their big conferences and I tell them our resolutions. They've suddenly twigged on, in the last year, they've suddenly twigged on to climate change. And this morning I just came from an NPC meeting of the executive, and they were saying, how many regions are going to be out on the 20th? What are you all going to do? So that is purely because of the UCU, on energy, on all the pollution, climate change and so on, and other things that we've introduced from here over to there.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Richard Page.
Richard, sorry.
Yeah, I totally endorse what you said. I must admit that the motion that the UCU put forward and then was, perhaps diluted but carried by the PUC has made it so much easier to do delegation work around the climate change strike next Friday in Hackney, because we were starting to build in Hackney for a climate strike, but then after we knew the result, of course, the information went to Unite and RMT, and it was so much easier then to get those local stewards on board for a local demonstration. That aside, I wanted to say that the description about a much wider approach to just transition, I mean, that's really, a very, very useful way of looking at it and framing it beyond energy. And I just wanted to suggest that one of the people I've been working with in Hackney has been Sean Day of Real News. And Sean has produced a wonderful set of short videos They're easily obtainable on YouTube, and I'll send them maybe to Steve for distribution to members on this topic of just transition, interviewing workers not just in the energy sector in Canada and North America, beyond that, but the actual contributions and from these militants that Sean interviewed is so inspiring, and I really want everybody to see it. So I'll forward it, and perhaps we can distribute it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that will be done.
Yeah, Richard Dunn, another Richard. A question actually to Sam. Given that the CO2 emissions already in the atmosphere are going to make things worse anyway, do you get a feeling that part of the reason why the trade union movement is moving, possibly in the energy movement, is because of reality? What's that, rather than just the how we're arguing it and so on? And does that bode better for the future? Because as things get worse, they might have to respond better. I mean, I just don't know how you felt like that over the last 10 years. That pamphlet came out, didn't it? 1 million.
Yeah,
10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Is it?
Time flies. It's that thing about, do you get a sense that things are actually beginning to shift because of that?
Do you want to take that now or at the end? Real question.
No.
I'll
take it now, yeah, just why it's current. I mean, they've shifted because there's been pressure across the trade union movement. And I think because of Extinction Rebellion and the student strikes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the real pressure has come from this year and has made the change. I think you have to recognise in the energy sector, see what is discouraging and talking about gas and fuel poverty action. What the unions are now doing is they talk about something called a balanced energy mix, which is a euphemism for nuclear and natural gas, which is obviously an area where we have strong disagreements with them on, and they know that, and I sit in meetings and tell them this. And this is a problem because space heating in the UK is around 80% gas, higher than other parts of Europe. It's a real issue that we've got to deal with, and you can't just electrify everything. There's all kinds of complications to that. So I've got full respect for the knowledge of people in those unions who've obviously worked around this, but what they don't come with is try to come to some of the solutions. It's just like, well, we can keep members in these jobs until 2040, 45, and then we'll kind of deal with it because we've got this now net zero by 2050 target, which is net, which still means carbon capture storage. So there's all kinds of issues around there. So I think they shifted slightly, but they're kind of just repositioning. But I think the other thing, which is a reality, jobs in the energy sector are going. Most of the new jobs coming because there's heavy capitalisation, so even North Sea oil and gas, that's going into automated drills and stuff like this. They're not labour intensive. So the kind of transitions that we're talking about, and the whole energy democracy agenda, as we call it, the public ownership and democratic control of energy, will deal with things like energy poverty, who's supplying your energy, and how you engage with that as well. So it would include things like retrofits and how we actually get out of this, our homes more, to conserve energy and more sort of passive house standards. So we would use less energy, so we have to deal with demands as well as supply as well. But I mean, there has been a shift.
Steve?
Yeah, 10 years since that report. I mean, I remember when, names are going for me, came and spoke here about and kind of launched it for us, and how that was the first report the million climate jobs. The first time I'd ever thought it was possible to do something about it. Yeah. Before that, I'd actually thought, well, we shout about it with cool names. Yeah, it's lost. You shout about lost cause, but I suppose I spent my life shouting about lost causes, so it was nothing much different. But recently, a similar group in South Africa have produced a million climate jobs for South Africa report, and it's interesting in the period between how much more radical that report has got. And how much more sort of militant they're arguing, how their demands, how they're much more... The nationalisation of things was implicit in the first report. They've become much more explicit about it. And I'd recommend people having a read of it. It's quite, and it's come out of both some of the township organisations, some of the economic freedom fighters, and the Metal Workers Union that recently got thrown out of Kazatu for being too cheeky. And I think that's quite interesting. So what I'll do, I think, if you like, I'll make a little page on the website with links to where people can get hold of these various things, so that we've got as a resource, yeah, and then that be so that, because otherwise I know if I send it all out in an email, people might read the first one, then they've forgotten where it is, or it's so far down the pub. Whereas if I do it as a resource, people, I can go back there, and I can, yeah.
Can I just add to that and ask Leslie a question? I mean, at the beginning of this meeting, there were 3-4 examples of increasing pollution, and I wondered whether you would be willing to pull it together and then add it in. I mean, to Steve. Steve can then add it into his thing.
I'll send you the stuff in that, but really it was one of the questions that's kind of related to that. I mean, for years I've been an activist. When it comes around employment stuff or whatever, I knew to contact in the local area, I knew who was doing stuff and everything else. But I can't help thinking, and that was partly because of this campaign and others I've been involved with at a local level, which I've kind of taken in and out of, that we do need some kind of national stroke international register, so we can see where activities are taking place. I mean, one of the problems we had locally, we weren't aware that there was I was in the area, that there'd already been a big campaign around the first incinerator. And obviously we contacted people like Friends of the Earth and whatever else, and there was no kind of history of what had gone on. And I think taking your point to some extent in that, and I'm not sure who's going to go coordinate it, because obviously the TUC or the International ILO or whatever do some of these registers, but there is a desperate need, I think, for just that, some kind of register. So if you're unhappy with what's going on in your local area in terms of pollution, at least you can see whether anybody else is involved. And there isn't that national register of any form whatsoever. And I'm not quite sure who should be organising, perhaps the TUC, perhaps the trade unions or whatever else. But if you are an individual who's not happy about certain pollution, knowing where to start and who's involved is actually quite difficult. And I speak from an activist point of view, and we spent a lot of time wasting our time trying to call meetings that nobody turned up to and things like that.
I think there's a coordinating body in Scotland, because I happen to know somebody who's involved in it. So if this is real, I mean, it would be worth contacting them as well.
Yes. Okay, so if we get hold of, just for how they got theirs going,
yeah,
and yeah, so it'd be worth contacting anyway as a start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just to quickly say that the Friends of the Earth have got a really good document on 40 actions to make your local authority implement. So that could be a good starting point for...
Thank you.
Right, you will... yes, could you just send it to me and I'll
yeah.
We'll start with it. Yeah, good.
Sam, do you want to sum up?
I'll just say a couple of things. I think obviously in terms of the Labour Party, to be fair to the Labour Party, they have shifted quite a lot in the past couple of years. When they put out their Green Transformation document in 2017 for that election, it was pretty much done on the hoof, and they put commitments on there. They weren't even quite sure how they were going to make them. For example, the 60% renewable energy by 2030, 2035, whatever it was. So, but I think they are spending a lot of time getting their policy in place. One of the things, and this will be a debate at conference, well it should be, because the Labour for a Green New Deal, which is an independent campaign around the Labour Party, I think there's over 100 CLPs have put those motions forward to conference, and unbelievably even more than Brexit motions, so that should hopefully get on the floor of Labour Party conference. But one of the important things, I mean there's many issues about Labour Green New Deal and sort of policy stuff that needs to be filled in, but I think generally the important thing is that's being pushed by young people, and the targets in there are about 2030, And these are zero carbon by 2030, not net zero, not carbon neutral. And there are differences between all these terms. Now, obviously, the trade unions are balking at that for obvious reasons, like it's absolutely impossible, we'll never do it, it costs too much money. It's like, well, clearly we won't do any of this stuff under this current government, and particularly where it's heading. So, I mean, yes, we've got other fights on there completely. So the point was made, obviously, about this not even registering if we get into an election, and Brexit dominating that campaign. I think one of the challenges is going to be is to make sure Brexit doesn't dominate that campaign for many, many good reasons, and that these things do get on there. But I mean, basically what we say, and with other unions like the bakers, it's like, in reality, it's not really targets that's so important. I mean, you know, if we don't do it by 2035, I don't think we're going to be too upset with ourselves. But, you know, but the reality of the science is 2030 at best. So we don't have an option, in our view, that not to try and put something in place. But what we do need is national coordinated plan, a national, you know, action, and then that is driven down locally. So all these things, I mean, these shocking things about incinerators. I'm in Waltham Forest. You know, local authorities declared a climate emergency, but won't go back and revisit any of its policies. You know, so these are just ridiculous, and these are Labour authorities, which is what makes me more angry. But you know. But so, you know, so that is our job really, and obviously the trade union movement needs to get its messages out around any election to its members. It's got to be getting through to its members, because we at least can speak to our members and not have to rely on the right-wing mainstream media for that. So we should be organising meetings around it. So I think that was the only thing, and just support the film by Sean Day and Real News is absolutely superb. Really good to see those, and I think it's one of those things that gives you hope when you see a lot of this stuff happening in places like the US, and really addressing issues of race as well, and the historic colonialism and that sort of wider agenda. I think they're absolutely brilliant films, and more that stuff's got out there and gives people ideas and confidence about what you can do at a local level as well is really good.
Thank you very much. Okay.